Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgie Calvin-Smith. Tonight, dozens have died in devastating wildfires that have ripped through Algeria's eastern mountains. More than 800 hectares of forest and almost 2,000 of woodland have been destroyed in blazes this month alone. Also, Dubai-based Emirates Airlines says it's going to suspend all flights to Nigeria from September the 1st as it can't repatriate $85 million of its money from the country. The problem is rooted in Nigeria's deepening foreign exchange crisis. And Angola is ramping up for parliamentary elections that will also decide the country's next president. The top concern for most voters is the economy. The miracle, long promised by incumbent João Lourenço, is yet to materialise, but his party is still the favourite. But first, Algeria's Prime Minister has defended the government's response to destructive blazes that have torn through forests in the east. At least 38 people have been killed and almost 200 injured. Authorities have been accused of being ill-prepared despite last year's devastating forest fires. Sophie Lamotte has more.
A tornado of fire that spared no one on its way, leaving hundreds of hectares of forest destroyed and dozens dead. Even these sheep literally burnt alive in the provinces of Al Tarif and Setif. These farmers have lost their homes, crops and cattle.
I don't understand how it happened. It was like a tornado. I helped the children run away from it. I couldn't do anything because of everything happening outside. You can see my house. The garage was destroyed. I couldn't save anything. Thank God the children are safe.
Helicopter water bombers intervened in 3 areas in the northeast of the country with support from the army. Still, some accuse authorities of being ill-prepared, with few firefighting aircrafts available, despite record casualties in last year's blaze, where 90 people were killed and 100,000 hectares were destroyed. Algeria is currently operating 1 Russian aircraft that broke down last week, and the EU has sent 2 Canadair aircraft to its ally in a bid to prevent further damage. Authorities have expressed doubts over the origin of these fires.
It may be related to climate, but maybe something else. An investigation's underway to find out the exact cause of these fires. Several fires have started off at the same time in Sucares, Tafjel. That poses serious questions, and the investigation will be able to shed light on the cause.
An investigation that led to the arrest of 3 people on Thursday who could be charged with arson.
Ethiopia's accused Tigrayan rebels of not being at all interested in peace talks to end 21 months of a brutal civil war. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's government and the TPLF leaders of Tigray have raised the prospect of negotiations, but little progress has been made and they're facing hurdles over who should lead talks. Thousands have died and millions are facing famine and various humanitarian emergencies since war erupted in 2020. Addis Ababa has also slammed the head of the World Health Organization for calling the crisis the worst disaster on earth. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus is from Tigray and has said that a lack of international attention to the situation there may be rooted in racism.
I can tell you that the humanitarian crisis in Tigray is more than Ukraine, without any exaggeration. And I said it many months ago, maybe the reason is the color of the skin of the people in Tigray. I haven't heard in the last few months, several months now, even a head of state talking about the Tigray condition anywhere, in the developed world especially.
Well, France has condemned increasing manipulation of information about its military withdrawal from Mali. It comes after Mali's call this week for an emergency United Nations Security Council meeting to discuss what it's characterising as French acts of aggression. Bamako also accused France of supplying terrorist groups with intelligence and weapons. Now, France's last remaining troops quit Mali this week after a 9-year battle there against a jihadist insurgency. Relations between Paris and Bamako have become increasingly acrimonious following repeated military coups in Bamako. Well, Emirates Airline says it will suspend all flights to Nigeria from the start of September because it hasn't been able to get $85 million worth of revenue out of the country. The Dubai-based airlines decided it's better to cut its losses, which are rising by $10 million every month. Now, the problem reflects the deepening foreign exchange crisis Nigeria is grappling. Sam Olukoya tells us more.
The Dubai-based airline Emirates says it will suspend flights to Nigeria from the beginning of next month. The airline says it has to stop its operations in Nigeria due to its inability to repatriate $85 million it realized in local ticket sales. Many foreign companies doing business in Nigeria, including airlines, are unable to repatriate funds abroad due to acute foreign currency shortage in the country. In June, the International Air Transport Association said foreign airlines operating in Nigeria are unable to repatriate $450 million. It is feared some other international airlines and businesses may emulate Emirates in suspending their operations in Nigeria if they continue to face difficulty repatriating their funds. Nigeria's acute foreign currency shortage is directly tied to the downturn in its oil industry. About 95% of Nigeria's hard currency comes from crude oil exports. Revenue in this sector has dwindled of recent, due in part to declining investments in the country's oil sector. While population is growing rapidly in Africa's most populous country, foreign currency earnings are declining. Nigeria has to ration hard currency to meet the ever-growing demand from individuals and businesses. Experts are warning of even more difficult times ahead if Nigeria continues to rely on crude oil exports for about 90% of its revenue without bothering to diversify to other sectors.
Oh, Sam Olukoya there for us. Now, Angola is less than a week away from general elections in which voters will decide on new MPs and so a new president. The economy is by far the biggest concern of the electorate. After 5 years of recession because of the fall in oil prices and the pandemic, GDP did start growing again in 2021, but there is still a ways to go and unemployment is on the rise. Clément Bonero and Juliette Dubois report.
5 years ago, Pramod Asija made one of the biggest gambles of his career. This owner of several shops and restaurants in Luanda invested $75,000 in Chupuca, the first home delivery startup in Angola. Today, the platform is a success with 1,000 orders per day and franchises across the region.
Here, beyond diamonds and oil, there are still a lot of sectors in which you can invest. If you have an idea that hasn't been developed here yet and that works well elsewhere, there's potential to create a business.
Yet this potential has not been fully tapped. Angola's economy is still struggling despite ambitious reforms such as the floating of the national currency and fiscal consolidation. After 5 years of recession, 2021 saw the return of growth, but inflation is today at 25% and the unemployment rate has crept up from 24 to 30%. In Zango, on the outskirts of Luanda, Christina has been without a job since March.
Since I lost my job, it's become very difficult to pay rent, to pay for the children's school fees, to pay for electricity. It's very complicated because my husband is the only one who has a job and his salary isn't enough to pay for everything. Right now, we haven't paid our rent yet.
In 2017, President João Lourenço was elected on the promise of delivering an economic miracle, diversifying the economy and creating 500,000 jobs. The government has blamed the pandemic for setbacks, but for this economist, it's not the only reason.
Angola is one of the 20 worst countries to do business in the world. We have no infrastructure. We have a poor education system. So as long as the state refuses to address these problems and to let the private sector take charge of the rest, we will not be able to diversify our economy.
In Angola, oil still accounts for 30% of GDP and 90% of export revenues.
Well, last month's legislative election in Senegal was the most closely fought in the country's history. In the lead up to the vote, the Constitutional Council prevented many leading opposition candidates from running. A side effect of that manoeuvre was the number of new faces that have now appeared in the National Assembly. Many are political outsiders hoping to now make their mark when Parliament reopens in September. Our correspondents went to meet some of them.
Papa Djibril Fall left his career as a broadcaster behind to enter the world of politics. The 36-year-old achieved a massive public profile as a commentator on local TV station TFM. As a newly elected opposition MP, he believes the government has poorly managed Senegal's natural resources. One of his top priorities is to help the country's youth.
Today, young people are looking to improve their lives by crossing the desert in search of an El Dorado. We want to inspire these young people by standing up for a free, transparent and logical position that will allow us to tell them that it doesn't make sense to lose hope.
Another new face in the National Assembly is Oumar Sy, a civil aviation official. Now that the governing coalition has a reduced majority of just one seat, he believes Senegalese politics has entered a new era.
Up until now, we had a National Assembly made up of a governing coalition devoted to the president. Our only priority now is to work exclusively for the priorities of the population.
Analysts believe it will be harder for President Macky Sall to push forward with his legislative agenda under the new parliament.
We know the difference in the number of MPs from the governing party and opposition is very small. There's a risk of no laws being passed at all. But I think that the Senegalese politicians are mature enough and should be responsible enough to avoid this.
Senegal's parliament is set to reopen on September 14th, following the summer recess.
Well, that's it for Eye on Africa for now. Thanks for joining us. Do so again. Till then, take care.